co-sponsored by Senator Sadiq Umar for Kwara State, is on the urgent need to intervene in the flooding issues in Shagamu areas of Ogun East Senatorial District, Ogun State, Edu, and Patigi areas of Kwara North Senatorial District of Kwara State, and other parts of the country. My name is Otumba Gbenga Daniel, representing the very good people of Ijebu and Remo axis of Ogun East Senatorial District. The Senate should please note that the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, had forecasted that the level of rainfall in 2023 will surpass that of 2022. That the Nigerian Meteorological Agency also know that the 2023 annual flood outlook prepared by the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency showed that 178 local government areas in 32 states and the FCT fell within the highly probable flood risk areas. The state should be aware that Lagos, Ogun, and Kwara states, in particular, will witness coastal flooding due to the tidal lock of Ogun River by Lagos Lagoon from a natural rise in sea level, coupled with the possible release of excessive water from Oyo Dam. The state should please be aware that several communities in Ogun and Kwara states, particularly Owa and Yemule riverbanks in Ijebu, Eruru in Shagamu, and Ebute Mobi in Ijebu North, in Ijebu East, all in Ogun East Senatorial District, with Edu and Patigi local government area in Kwara North Central Senatorial District, will experience the first flash floods due to heavy rainfall between July and November 2023. Concerned that all over Nigeria, downpours have resulted in destructions and deaths, as residents of Lagos Island and mainland in Lagos were displaced. Business owners and residents were displaced also in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. Reported death in Enugu due to this surge. A 10-year-old was swept away by flood in Delta, and the very devastating erosion of the face of the Trademore Estate in Lugbe here in Abuja. Also to be concerned that a 14-year-old secondary school student died, and several others reportedly swept away in a heavy downpour that affected major parts of Shagamu, such as Ajaka, Express Junction, Olayinka, Ogunyowo, and Isale Ojubile. To be further concerned that if the impending floods when the rain really starts in September to November 2023 is not checkmated through proper planning, there could be the danger of a huge loss of lives and properties. And informed that the climate change and the global warming have led to increase in temperature, thus affecting the coastlines, which has resulted in an increase in the volume of water in the sea. Accordingly, the Senate is hereby asked to resolve by constituting an ad hoc committee to liaise with relevant ministries, departments, and agencies to put in place erosion prevention and management mechanisms. The state is please urge the relevant ministries, departments, and agencies to release funds for dredging of block canals and water bodies, amongst others. The Senate should please urge the Federal Ministry of Water Resources to revisit the proposed construction of Dasin Hausa Dam and the other dams, as the case may be, to take in the flood water from Lagdo Dam in the Cameroon. And finally, to all the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to send relief materials to the affected victims in Shagamu, Ijebu areas of Ogun East Senatorial District in Ogun State, Edu and Patigi local government of Kwara State, and other parts of the country. With the kind permission of my co-sponsor, Senator Sadiq Umar, I so move.
I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent the good and decent people of Kwara North, and we who are. Mr. President, my distinguished colleague, I rise to second that there is an urgent need to intervene in the flooding issues in Sagamu, Ijebu areas of Ogun East Senatorial District in Ogun State, Edu and Patigi areas of Kwara North Senatorial District of Kwara State, and other parts of the country. I so second, Mr. President. After seconding, Mr. President, let me add that it's not rocket science. We already know that these events will happen, and it has always been happening. Our approach to this normally is always to scratch the problem on the surface, which we do palliatives. We give them mattresses, give them food stuff. But Mr. President, what our people go through as a result of flooding is better imagined. They lose so much money in billions, and most of this money indeed are monies they borrow from banks to farm. Their farmland get washed every year. They lose lives. They lose their house. They lose hospitals. They lose schools. They get displaced completely. And Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, we are aware this will always happen because the knowledge is there. What are we doing about it? I think it is about time we began to take flooding issues very seriously in this country, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. And the major solution indeed is to dredge these key rivers. We have to dredge. The cost of dredging is indeed very humongous, we know. But the cost of not dredging is far more than the cost of dredging, at least for those who suffer this problem. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I know that senators will contribute, and I'm sure almost every part of this country will be affected, and almost everyone will want to talk on this because almost everybody is affected. But what is important to me, Mr. President, is for us to be resolute about this. Is for us to take this very serious and engage the executive to ensure that money is voted to solve this problem once and for all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Issa Jibrin, representing the very good people of Kogi East. Mr. President, sir, the issue of flooding in Nigeria has become an annual ritual. And you can predict with almost certainty that there will be flood and there will be destruction of lives and properties in certain areas of Nigeria almost every year. I think we need to come up with short-term measures and long-term measures to approach the problem of flooding in Nigeria. With respect to short-term measures, the issue of drainage, control of drainage is very, very important. And I think every state has Ministry of Environment that can address the issue of drainages in the various states. That is a stopgap measure, okay? Immediate measure that can be taken. But having said that, sir, there is a need for a long-term measure that will address the issue of flooding in Nigeria. One of such is the creation of dams, construction of dams to absorb some of these excess waters, okay? It is also proposed here, and I want to believe that it's an issue that will be taken further. Dams at relevant locations to absorb these waters. Then the issue of dredging is very important. Okay, there's a trade-off here. The cost of dredging is very high, but the destruction to lives and properties, there is a trade-off. You dredge, okay, so as to save the lives of the people. So the trade-off is between saving the lives of the people and dredging. So no matter what it will cost the government, it is better and safer for us to do the dredging so that the waters can flow, because at any point in time, water must always find its level. Then thirdly, sir, with particular reference to a state like Kogi, okay, there are some people that need to be relocated permanently, because on an annual basis, those areas are prone to flood. The government not the state government this time around, the federal government needs to come to the aid of some of these states so as to relocate some of the dwellers there. Because on annual basis, these people are subjected to loss of lives and properties. And you can always predict that it will come, and normally it comes. Okay, so on that note, I want to believe that we need to segment whatever solutions we have to short-term measures and then medium to long-term measures, and then make appropriate proposals to the federal, to the executive for implementation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ahmed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished senators, this motion is apt and very, very germane, especially against the backdrop of the fact that we are in a rainy season and there is avalanche of flooding across the nooks and crannies of this country. And as a Senate that is responsible and responsive to the yearnings and expressions of the people, this motion is very, very germane and important, because the primary responsibility of any government is the welfare of its citizenry. By addressing this issue of flooding by this Senate, we are discharging our constitutional responsibility of taking care of the welfare of our constituents. Mr. President, distinguished senators, our behavior all along in this country towards the issue of flooding is like being penny wise and pound foolish, in the sense that instead of taking measures that will avert the ugly scenario of flooding before it occurs, will allow flooding to occur and then rush to the scene with a lot of money for palliatives. And this thing keeps on coming like a recurring decimal, year in, year out. So there is the need, as ably submitted to by the previous speakers, there is the need for us to think long-term, take long-term solutions, so that this ugly scenario of flooding that affects the welfare of our constituents will be addressed once and for all. Mr. President, I submit and adopt all the submissions made by the previous speakers. Thank you.